I'm Daniel, 42, a structural engineer with a penchant for order, blueprints, calculations, and the quiet rhythm of routine. My wife, Claire, 39, is a museum curator, her world woven with art and history, her laughter a melody that's anchored our 12-year marriage. We live in a restored Victorian in Portland, Oregon, with our dog, Jasper, and a life I thought was unshakable. But lately, I've noticed a tremor in our foundation. Claire's been distant, her hazel eyes drifting past me at dinner, her phone buzzing late into the night. She says it's work, exhibits, donors, endless emails. I believed her because I always have. Trust was our cornerstone. Last Tuesday, I came home early, arms full of groceries for the risotto she loves. The house was quiet, Jasper asleep on the rug. Claire's coat was on the rack, but she wasn't in her study or the kitchen. I called her name, my voice echoing off the hardwood. No answer. Upstairs, our bedroom door was ajar, her scarf on the floor like a discarded thought. I pushed it open, expecting her napping or lost in a book. Instead, I found her laptop open on the bed, glowing with a message thread I wasn't meant to see. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., the usual spot. Can't wait. The sender, Ethan Caldwell, a local sculptor whose work Claire had curated last spring. My stomach twisted, not with certainty but with a gnawing suspicion. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking, and told myself it was nothing. Just colleagues. Just art. That night, Claire came home late, smelling of lavender and something sharper, like turpentine. She kissed my cheek, her lips cool, and talked about a new exhibit over dinner. I watched her fork chase peas around her plate, her words bright but hollow. I didn't ask about Ethan. I didn't mention the message. Instead, I poured her wine and nodded, my mind sketching fault lines I couldn't yet see. After she went to bed, I sat in the dark, Jasper's head on my knee, and wondered when her warmth had started slipping away. The blueprint of our life, our mornings tangled in sheets, our late-night debates over old movies, felt like it was being redrawn without my input. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, calculating the weight of doubt, wondering if I was paranoid or if the woman I loved was building a secret world I wasn't part of. By dawn, I knew I couldn't ignore it. I needed proof, not just of betrayal but of the shape it took, because something about this felt stranger than a simple affair. The next morning, I woke with a plan, though it felt like betraying Claire just to think it. I'm not a spy. I'm a man who measures stress loads on bridges, not the cracks in a marriage. But doubt is a heavy load too, and I needed answers. Claire left early, her smile brief as she mentioned a meeting with the team. I nodded, my coffee bitter, and waited until her car pulled away. Then I started digging. Her laptop was password protected, but I knew her habits. She reused variations of her childhood dog's name, and after 3 tries, Rufus 1990, it opened. My heart pounded as I scanned her emails. Most were mundane. Donor lists, exhibit schedules, a thread about a cracked Ming vase. But buried in her inbox was a folder labeled Miscellaneous. Inside, encrypted files and a single email from Ethan, check the cloud. New piece for you. No context, no warmth, just a directive. I found her cloud account logged in on her tablet, which she'd left charging in the kitchen. The files were labeled with dates, not names, and one from last week caught my eye. It wasn't a sculpture sketch but a photo. Claire in a dimly lit studio, laughing, her hand on Ethan's arm, his eyes locked on her like she was the only thing in the room. Behind them, a half-finished clay figure, vaguely human but twisted, like it was reaching for something it couldn't grasp. My chest tightened. This wasn't proof of anything physical, but it was intimacy. Shared moments I hadn't been invited to. I kept searching, finding more photos, some with cryptic captions. The muse returns, our secret shape. The language was odd, almost ritualistic, not the casual flirtation I'd braced for. I drove to Ethan's studio that afternoon, a converted warehouse by the Willamette River. I didn't plan to confront him. I just needed to see. Through a grimy window, I glimpsed Claire inside, her hair loose, gesturing animatedly as Ethan molded clay. They didn't touch, but their ease, their shared orbit, was louder than any embrace. A third person was there too, a woman older sketching in a corner. It felt less like an affair and more like a closed circle, a private world Claire had chosen over ours. I left before they saw me, my mind racing. Back home, I pored over Ethan's public work online. His sculptures were unsettling, limbs fused unnaturally, faces half-formed. Critics called them primal. I called them wrong. Claire's involvement wasn't just emotional. It was tied to this art, this vision. I didn't understand it yet, but I knew it was bigger than a fling. That night, I watched her sleep, her face serene, and felt a cold resolve settle in. Whatever she was part of, I'd uncover it, and make her regret building it behind my back. The next week was a study in restraint. I played the dutiful husband, cooking Claire's favorite meals, asking about her day, while my mind mapped the fault lines of her secret. She was brighter now, as if my silence gave her room to breathe, but her phone never left her side, and her excuses grew flimsier. Late night at the museum, she'd say, or Ethan's prepping a new piece. I nodded, my smile a mask, while I gathered fragments of her other life. I started tailing her, discreetly, using my old pickup instead of the SUV she'd recognize. On Thursday, she didn't go to the museum but to a loft downtown, one Ethan rented for pop-up galleries. I parked across the street, my binoculars borrowed from a camping trip, and watched. The loft's windows were frosted, but shadows moved inside. Claire, Ethan, the older woman from the studio, and two others I didn't recognize. They weren't partying. Their movements were deliberate, almost ceremonial. A faint hum, like chanting, drifted through a cracked window. I couldn't make out words, but it wasn't casual conversation. My skin prickled. This wasn't an affair in the usual sense. No stolen kisses or hotel rooms. It was something stranger, like Claire had joined a cult of artists, her loyalty shifting to Ethan's warped vision. I snapped photos with my phone, blurry but enough to confirm the group. When Claire left, she looked exhilarated, her cheeks flushed, carrying a small wooden box etched with symbols I didn't recognize. Back home, I researched Ethan's circle. The older woman was Marta Klein, a retired art professor with a niche following for her esoteric essays on transfigurative creation. The others were harder to pin down, but one, a wiry man with a shaved head, matched a grainy photo from an obscure art blog. They called themselves the Shapers, a collective obsessed with molding the human essence. Their work wasn't just sculptures. It was performance, ritual, something about merging art and identity. Claire's captions, "Our secret shape," echoed their rhetoric. My wife wasn't just cheating with Ethan. She was cheating with this entire group, giving them her mind, her passion, herself. I couldn't confront her yet. I needed more, something undeniable. I planted a GPS tracker in her car, a cheap one from an electronics store, and synced it to my phone. Her movements confirmed the pattern. Museum, studio, loft, repeat. Each visit to the loft coincided with a new file in her cloud, often photos of clay figures that looked disturbingly like Claire. Her nose, her jawline, but distorted, as if her essence was being reshaped. I lay awake, Jasper snoring beside me, and felt the first sparks of anger harden into something colder. Claire wasn't just leaving me. She was letting them remake her. I'd find out how far it went, and when I did, I'd tear their world apart. By Friday, I was a ghost in my own life, moving through routines while my mind churned with Claire's betrayal. The GPS tracker painted a map of her secret world. The loft, Ethan's studio, even a secluded park where she met Marta once. Each ping on my phone was a needle, pricking the trust I'd built with her over a decade. I stopped eating much. The risotto I'd made sat uneaten in the fridge, a reminder of the life we'd lost. Jasper sensed it, his brown eyes following me as I paced the house, piecing together the Shapers' hold on her. Their art wasn't just strange. It was invasive, like they were sculpting Claire's soul, not just clay. I needed to see it up close. I found my chance when Claire mentioned a gallery event Saturday night. She invited me, a rare olive branch, but her eyes didn't meet mine. I agreed, feigning enthusiasm, and spent the day preparing. I hid a voice recorder in my jacket, small enough to go unnoticed, and practiced keeping my face neutral. The event was at the loft, its bare brick walls lit with flickering LEDs. About 30 people mingled, artists, collectors, a few critics, but the shapers stood out, their energy intense, almost predatory. Claire glowed in a black dress, her laughter sharp as she spoke with Ethan, his hand brushing her elbow. Marta watched from a corner, her sketchbook open, while the wiry man, introduced as Leo, circled with a tray of drinks that smelled faintly herbal. The art was unveiled midway through. A clay figure, 7 feet tall, its limbs unnaturally long, its face a blend of Claire's features and something alien. Ethan called it the first form, his voice reverent, and the shapers clapped like it was a sacrament. Claire's eyes shone, not with pride but with a fervor I didn't recognize. I slipped away, pretending to use the bathroom, and found a side room. Inside, more figures, smaller but eerily personal. One had Claire's scar on its knee, another her crooked pinky. Photos pinned to a corkboard showed her posing, clay smeared on her skin, as Marta sketched. My recorder caught my ragged breathing as I realized they weren't just inspired by her. They were consuming her. I rejoined the crowd, my pulse hammering. Claire didn't notice my absence, too caught up in Ethan's orbit. When we got home, she was buoyant, talking about the energy of the night. I nodded, my jaw tight, and waited until she slept. Then I listened to the recorder, catching snippets of the shaper's murmurs. She's ready? The next phase. My anger crystallized. This wasn't just infidelity. It was theft of her identity, her essence. I didn't know what phase they meant, but I'd stop it. I'd make them pay for taking her from me, and I'd do it with the precision I brought to my bridges. Cold, calculated, and unyielding. Sunday morning, I woke before Claire, my mind a blueprint of vengeance. The shapers hadn't just stolen her affection. They'd hijacked her very being, molding her into their twisted art. I couldn't let it continue, but confrontation wasn't enough. I needed to dismantle their world, expose their ritualistic grip, and make Claire feel the weight of her betrayal. Revenge, I decided, would be surgical. Not loud or violent, but devastating, like a bridge collapsing under its own flaws. I spent the day in my home office, Jasper at my feet, mapping my strategy. The Shaper's Loft was the heart of their operation. That's where I'd strike. First, I dug deeper into their digital footprint. Using a VPN, I scoured art forums and obscure blogs, finding whispers about the Shaper's private works. One post, buried in a defunct thread, mentioned a collector who'd paid for a living sculpture, a person reshaped through art and ritual. The language mirrored Claire's cloud files, her captions about secret shapes. My stomach churned. Were they planning to turn her into one of these? I hacked into Ethan's public portfolio site. His security was laughably weak, and found a hidden directory. It held videos. Claire chanting with the group, her voice low, her body painted with clay. She looked entranced, not coerced, which hurt worse. I downloaded everything, my hands trembling. Next, I studied the loft's layout using public records and my engineering skills. It was a leased space owned by a shell company tied to Marta. The building had a sprinkler system, old but functional, and a digital lock system I could exploit. I wasn't a hacker, but I'd learned enough about systems from work to know vulnerabilities. I ordered a signal jammer online, rush delivery to disrupt their cameras. My plan was forming. I'd infiltrate their next gathering, gather irrefutable evidence, and sabotage their work, physically and publicly. I'd make their art, their bond with Claire, crumble. That night, Claire was quiet, sketching in her journal, designs that looked like Ethan's sculptures. I asked about them, probing gently. She deflected, saying they were inspiration, but her fingers tightened on the pencil. I didn't push. I needed her to think I was oblivious. After she slept, I checked her journal. The sketches were meticulous, almost anatomical, with notes in the margins, Phase 2, binding, confirmed my fears. They were escalating. I photographed the pages, adding them to my growing archive. By Monday, I was ready to act. The GPS showed Claire heading to the loft again. I followed, my recorder and a tiny camera hidden in my coat. This time, I'd get inside, see the ritual firsthand. Whatever they were doing to her, I'd document it. And when the time came, I'd use it to ruin them. Claire would see what she'd traded our life for, and she'd have nothing left to hide behind. Monday evening, I parked 2 blocks from the loft, my pulse steady despite the weight of what I was about to do. The signal jammer hummed in my backpack, alongside the tiny camera and recorder. I'd swapped my usual jacket for a dark hoodie, blending into Portland's drizzle-soaked streets. The loft's digital lock was my first hurdle. I'd watched Claire enter enough times to guess her code. Her birth year, 1986. It clicked open, and I slipped inside, the jammer scrambling the hallway's lone camera. The air smelled of clay and incense, thick and cloying. Muffled voices echoed from the main room, Claire's among them, bright and fervent. I crept to a storage closet, its door ajar, offering a view of the gathering. 8 people formed a circle around a clay figure, this one smaller, its features unmistakably Claire's, her high cheekbones, her slight overbite. Ethan stood at the center, his voice low, guiding what felt like a ritual. "The form binds the essence," he said, as Marta smeared clay on Claire's hands. Leo, the wiry man, lit candles, their flames casting shadows that danced like specters. Claire's eyes were half closed, her lips moving in a chant I couldn't parse. The camera in my sleeve recorded it all, my breath shallow as I fought the urge to storm in. They weren't just sculpting. They were performing something deeper, as if Claire was offering pieces of herself to their art. A wooden box, like the one I'd seen her carry, sat open, filled with small clay tokens etched with symbols. Each shaper took one, pressing it to their foreheads. Claire did the same, her expression serene, almost ecstatic. My chest burned. This was her betrayal, not a lover's touch but a surrender of her identity to this group, her loyalty to me replaced by their warped vision. I stayed until they dispersed, slipping out as the jammer's battery died. Back home, I reviewed the footage, the ritual strangeness sinking in. Claire returned late, humming, unaware I'd seen her truth. Couldn't sleep. The tokens haunted me. Were they symbolic or something more? I cross-referenced the symbols online, finding matches in obscure texts about soul-binding rituals, fringe art movements that blurred identity and creation. The shapers weren't just eccentric. They were dangerous, reshaping Claire's essence for their own ends. My revenge sharpened. I'd expose them, destroy their work, and make Claire face the void she'd chosen over us. But I needed more, proof that would ruin them publicly, not just emotionally. I'd return to the loft, alone, and find the heart of their operation. Whatever it cost, I'd make them pay. Tuesday, I called in sick, my voice hoarse from sleeplessness. Claire was at the museum, or so she claimed, but the GPS showed her car near Ethan's studio. I used the time to plan my next move, a solo raid on the loft. The ritual I'd witnessed was a glimpse, but the shaper's true work, whatever bound Claire so deeply, was hidden. I suspected a secure area, maybe a basement or back room, where they kept their most private creations. My engineering mind thrived on systems. I'd find the weak point and crack it open. I waited until dusk, the city cloaked in fog. The loft was empty, the shaper's schedule predictable from my tracking. The digital lock yielded to Claire's code again, and I moved fast, the jammer active. Inside, I bypassed the main room, its clay figures looming like silent judges, and searched for a hidden space. A locked door behind a curtain caught my eye, its keypad more sophisticated than the entrance. I tried Claire's code, no luck. Then I remembered her journal's cryptic notes. Binding 2519. I punched it in, and the door hissed open, revealing a staircase descending into a dimly lit vault. The air below was cold, heavy with the scent of damp earth. Shelves lined the walls, holding dozens of clay tokens, each etched with unique symbols. A workbench held tools and half-formed figures, some with Claire's features, others resembling Ethan or Marta. A locked cabinet drew me. I pried it open with a crowbar from my bag. Inside were journals, photos, and a hard drive labeled Essence Archive. The photos showed Claire in various stages of the ritual, her body painted, her eyes vacant as the Shapers chanted. The journals detailed their philosophy. The self is clay, molded by collective will. They believed they could reshape a person's core, and Claire was their muse. I took the hard drive and a handful of tokens, my hands steady despite the rage boiling inside. The photos confirmed she wasn't coerced. She'd chosen this, willingly letting them carve away pieces of who she was. Upstairs, I rigged the sprinkler system, loosening a valve to ensure a future accident. It was a small step, but it would disrupt their work. I left undetected, the hard drive burning a hole in my bag. At home, I cracked its encryption, basic, sloppy, and found videos, manifests, even financial records. The Shapers sold their living sculptures to wealthy collectors, profiting off their rituals. Claire's transformation was their masterpiece, and they documented every step. My revenge took clearer shape. I'd leak this to the art world, ruin their reputations, and make Claire see the cost of her new life. But first, I needed to confront her. Not yet, but soon, when my evidence was ironclad and my trap was set. Wednesday, I played the part of the oblivious husband, my anger buried under a practiced smile. Claire was home more, as if sensing my scrutiny, her chatter about the museum almost convincing. But her sketches filled her journal. More figures, more symbols, and her phone buzzed with messages she didn't open in front of me. I cooked breakfast, pancakes with the blueberries she loved, and watched her eat, her fingers tapping nervously. "You okay?" I asked, my voice light. She nodded, too quickly, and changed the subject to Jasper's vet appointment. I let it slide, my mind on the hard drive hidden in my office. That afternoon, I analyzed the Shapers' files. The financial records were damning. Payments from anonymous buyers, some in the millions, for exclusive forms. One entry referenced Claire by a code, Subject C, detailing her progression through 3 phases. The ritual I'd seen was Phase 1. Phase 2, binding, was underway, involving the tokens. Phase 3, transference, was vague but chilling, hinting at a permanent shift in identity. My stomach twisted. They weren't just using her. They were erasing her, turning the woman I loved into a vessel for their art. The videos showed her chanting, carving tokens, her voice detached, like she was already half gone. I cross-checked the buyers' names using public records and art world gossip. One was a reclusive tech mogul, another a European gallerist with a shady past. Exposing them would amplify the Shapers' downfall, but I needed to tie Claire to it personally, make her feel the betrayal's weight. I drafted an anonymous tip to an art journalist I'd found online, Sarah Vell, known for breaking scandals. I'd send her the files later, timed for maximum impact. For now, I focused on the loft sabotage. The sprinkler tweak was a start, but I'd escalate. Maybe tamper with their clay supplies, contaminate their materials, ruin their creations before they could finish Claire's transference. That night, Claire suggested a movie, a rare gesture. We watched an old Hitchcock, her head on my shoulder, but I felt the distance, like she was performing too. I wondered if she sensed my knowledge, if guilt gnawed at her. After she slept, I slipped into my office and studied the tokens I'd stolen. They were heavier than they looked, almost warm, as if infused with something beyond clay. I didn't believe in their mysticism, but their hold on Claire was real. I crushed one, its fragments gritty under my heel, and felt a surge of control. The Shapers thought they were sculptors of souls, but I'd sculpt their ruin. Tomorrow, I'd return to the loft, plant more chaos, and prepare the final blow. Claire would see her mistake, not through tears or apologies, but through the wreckage of the world she'd chosen over me. Thursday, I struck again, my plan gaining momentum. The loft was my target, its vault the Shapers' sanctum. I waited until midnight, knowing their gatherings rarely ran late on weekdays. The city was quiet, rain masking my footsteps as I approached. The jammer worked its magic, and Claire's code still held. Inside, the air was stale, the clay figures watching from their pedestals. I moved to the vault, my crowbar ready, and targeted their supplies. Dozens of clay blocks sat on shelves, labeled by source, rare, imported, supposedly pure. I mixed a corrosive powder, bought from a hardware store, into half the blocks, subtle enough to ruin their work over time without immediate detection. Next, I rigged the vault's ventilation system, loosening a duct to cause a slow leak. It wouldn't collapse the space, but it would make it unusable, forcing them to scramble. I planted a second camera, hidden in a corner, to monitor their reaction. Every move was calculated, like reinforcing a bridge against a storm. I took more photos, focusing on the tokens and journals, building my dossier for Cerevel. The hard drive's contents were already backed up on an encrypted server I'd set up, safe from Claire or the Shapers. As I worked, I imagined Claire's face when her precious collective crumbled, her shock when she realized I'd outmaneuvered her. Leaving the loft, I nearly faltered. A light flicked on across the street. A neighbor, maybe, or paranoia. I slipped away, my heart pounding, and drove home. Claire was asleep, her journal open on the nightstand. A new sketch of a figure with her eyes but a stranger's mouth. I photographed it, my hands steady. The GPS showed she'd been at the loft earlier, likely with Ethan, planning their next ritual. I checked my camera feed. It was live, capturing the empty vault. I'd return soon, but for now, I let the sabotage simmer, a slow poison in their system. Friday, Claire was distracted, mentioning a setback with the exhibit. I feigned concern, asking if Ethan was helping. Her pause was telling, her smile forced. "He's busy," she said, and changed the topic. I knew the truth. My tampering was working, fraying their plans. I spent the day refining my leak to Cerevel, encrypting the files and drafting a letter outlining the Shapers, living sculptures, and Claire's role. I didn't send it yet. Timing was critical. I wanted Claire to feel secure, to think her secret was safe, before I pulled the foundation from under her. My revenge wasn't just about exposure, it was about precision, ensuring she lost everything she'd gained by betraying me. That night, I watched her sleep, her face peaceful, and felt no pity. The Shapers had taken her from me, but I'd take them from her, piece by carefully crafted piece. Saturday, I sensed the end approaching, my plan a machine humming toward its purpose. Claire was restless, her phone buzzing with messages she read in private. The GPS showed her at the loft twice that day, unusual for a weekend. My camera feed caught fragments. Ethan arguing with Marta, Claire pacing, the group inspecting clay blocks with puzzled frowns. My sabotage was biting, their work stalling as the corrosive powder did its job. The ventilation leak had forced them to prop open the vault door, exposing their secrets to my lens. I had enough evidence, videos, photos, financial records, to bury them, but I needed Claire to witness the collapse firsthand. I decided to force her hand. At dinner, I mentioned the loft casually, saying I'd heard about a unique art group there. Her fork froze midair, her eyes darting to mine. "Just rumors," she mumbled, but her voice cracked. I pressed, describing the Shapers' rituals vaguely, watching her squirm. She deflected, claiming exhaustion, and went to bed early. I knew she'd contact Ethan, warn the group. My phone pinged. Her car was moving, heading to the loft. I followed, the jammer and camera ready, my resolve ironclad. This was my chance to catch them mid-crisis, to record their panic and Claire's complicity. At the loft, I slipped inside, the lock still yielding to her code. Voices echoed from the vault. Claire's, sharp with urgency, Ethan's, defensive. "The clay's ruined," he snapped. "Someone's been here." Marta muttered about outsiders, her tone paranoid. I hid in the storage closet, my camera rolling. Claire's voice cut through. "Daniel doesn't know. He can't." My blood ran cold, not from her lie, but from her certainty. She'd never suspected me, never seen the husband she'd dismissed as predictable. They discussed moving the tokens, accelerating transference before their work was compromised. I recorded it all, their desperation a gift. I left before they finished, my mind racing. The leak to Saravel was ready. I'd send it tomorrow, time to hit when the Shapers gathered next. But first, I'd confront Claire. Not with accusations but with proof, forcing her to see her world unravel. I'd show her the photos, the videos, and let her know I'd orchestrated their downfall. My revenge would be cruel not in its volume but in its precision. She'd lose the Shapers, her muse status, her identity within their circle. Back home, I hid the evidence in a locked safe, Jasper watching me with solemn eyes. Claire returned at dawn, her face drawn, and slipped into bed, thinking I slept. I lay still, my plan complete, the trap set. Tomorrow I'd spring it, and she'd learn what it meant to betray a man who built bridges, and broke them with equal skill. Sunday morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. The evidence was locked in my safe. Videos, photos, journals, the Shapers' financial records, each piece a brick in the wall I'd built to crush Claire's secret world. She was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, her eyes shadowed from her late-night meeting. I poured myself a mug, my movements deliberate, and sat across from her. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but unyielding. Her fingers tightened on her cup, a flicker of unease crossing her face. I didn't wait for her deflection. I opened my laptop, cued a video from the loft's vault, and hit play. The screen showed Claire chanting, clay-smeared, her eyes vacant as Ethan and Marta circled her. She gasped, her mug clattering to the table. "Where did you get this?" she whispered, her voice raw. I didn't answer, just slid a photo across the table. Her posing with a figure carved in her likeness, the Shapers' tokens glinting in the background. "I know everything," I said. "The rituals, the tokens, the living sculptures. You didn't just betray me, Claire. You let them remake you." Her face crumpled, but not with guilt. Anger, defiance. "You wouldn't understand," she snapped. "It's art, Daniel. It's bigger than us." I leaned forward, my gaze cold. Bigger than 12 years? Than our home, our life. I showed her the journal entries, her own sketches of binding and transference, and watched her bravado falter. She tried to explain the Shapers' vision, their belief in merging self with creation, but her words were hollow, a script she'd rehearsed. I cut her off, revealing the hard drive, the financials, the buyers. "You're their product," I said, "and I'm ending it." She lunged for the laptop, but I was faster, closing it. "It's too late," I told her. "The art world will know by tonight." Her eyes widened, panic setting in. I left her there, trembling, and locked myself in my office. The trap was sprung. Now I detonate it. I finalized the leak to Saravel, attaching the files with a detailed letter exposing the Shapers' rituals and Claire's role as Subject C. I scheduled the email for 8 p.m., when the Shapers would be at the loft for their weekly gathering. Claire pounded on my door, begging me to stop, but I ignored her. Jasper whined at my feet, sensing the fracture in our home. I felt no pity, only the cold satisfaction of a plan nearing completion. Claire had chosen the Shapers over me. Now she'd lose both. At 7:30 p.m., I drove to the loft, parking out of sight. The Shapers were inside, their shadows moving behind frosted windows, unaware of the storm I'd unleashed. Saravel's blog, a cornerstone of the art world's gossip, went live at 8:02 p.m. I checked my phone, refreshing obsessively. The headline screamed, "Portland Art Collective Exposed. Rituals, Exploitation, and a Curator's Secret Life." The article detailed the Shapers' living sculptures, naming Claire as their muse, with blurred stills from my videos and excerpts from their journals. It traced the money trail to shady collectors, framing the group as a cult profiting off manipulated identities. Comments flooded in shock, outrage, demands for investigations. I watched the loft's windows, my camera ready. Within minutes, phones lit up inside, the group's movements frantic. Ethan stormed to the door, Marta trailing him, her sketchbook forgotten. Claire was there too, her silhouette rigid, clutching her phone. I'd sent her a link to the article and signed, ensuring she'd see it with them. The sprinklers I'd tampered with chose that moment to sputter, a drizzle soaking their precious clay figures. Shouts echoed, Leo's voice, cursing, as they scrambled to save their work. My ventilation sabotage had weakened the room's air, and the damp chaos was perfect. I recorded it all, their panic a symphony of my making. By 9 p.m., the article had spread to X, hashtags like #ShaperScandal trending. Galleries dropped Ethan's work. Collectors issued denials. Claire's museum issued a statement distancing itself, her name conspicuously absent. I drove home, the city buzzing with the fallout. Claire wasn't there. She'd stayed at the loft, likely pleading with the Shapers to salvage their vision. I didn't care. My revenge was public now, a wrecking ball through her new world. I poured a whiskey, Jasper at my side, and checked my camera feed. The loft was a mess, clay dissolving, tokens scattered. The Shapers were broken, and Claire was exposed, her curator's prestige shattered. But I wasn't done. The final cruelty awaited, one that would hit her personally, ensuring she felt the betrayal's full weight. I slept lightly, dreaming of bridges collapsing, their beams snapping like trust. By morning, Claire had texted, "We need to talk, please." I ignored it. She'd talk when I was ready on my terms. The art world's outrage grew, with Sarah Vell teasing a follow-up on the buyers' identities. I'd fed her just enough to keep the pressure on, holding back the rest for leverage. My plan had worked. Publicly, the Shapers were ruined, and Claire's role was undeniable. But the private reckoning, the one that would cut deepest, was still to come. I'd make her face me, not as a victim, but as the architect of her own loss, just as I'd been forced to face her betrayal. Monday, Claire came home, her eyes red, her curator's polish gone. She looked like a stranger, her hair limp, her hands trembling as she set her keys down. I was in the living room, the safe open, its contents, photos, tokens, the crushed clay, spread on the coffee table like a crime scene. Jasper growled softly, sensing the tension. "Sit," I said, my voice flat. She did, her gaze flickering over the evidence. "You saw the article," I said, not a question. She nodded, her lips tight. "You did this?" She whispered, half accusation, half awe. I didn't deny it. I laid out her betrayal, not with anger but with precision, like drafting a blueprint. "You didn't just join them, Claire. You gave them your soul, let them carve you into something I don't recognize. You chose their rituals over our life." I pushed a photo toward her, her painted, chanting, lost in their circle. "This isn't art. It's theft." She flinched, tears spilling, but I didn't soften. "You thought I wouldn't notice, wouldn't fight back. But I'm not the one who's lost everything." I listed her losses. Her museum job, on indefinite leave. Her reputation, shredded by the scandal. The Shapers, fractured and disgraced. She sobbed, but her words were defiance, not remorse. "You destroyed something beautiful," she said. "You'll never understand." I stood, towering over her. "Beautiful? You sold yourself to them, Claire, and I made sure the world saw it." I revealed my sabotage. The sprinklers, the clay, the ventilation, watching her eyes widen. "I didn't just expose you. I broke your precious collective from the inside." Her hands shook, realization dawning that I'd outmaneuvered her at every turn. I saved the cruelest blow for last. "I kept one thing back," I said, holding up a USB drive. "Proof of your consent, your eagerness. Emails where you begged Ethan to bind you faster. I could send it to the museum, the police, your family." Her face drained of color. "Don't," she whispered, finally broken. I didn't promise mercy. Instead, I told her to leave, our home, our life. "You're not my wife anymore," I said. "You're their creation. Live with it." She gathered her things, sobbing, and left, Jasper watching her go. I felt no triumph, only a hollow satisfaction. My revenge was complete in its cruelty. Not loud, but surgical, stripping her of her identity as she'd let them strip hers. I locked the safe, the USB drive inside, a final weapon I might never use but kept as leverage. The house was quiet, too big for just me and Jasper. I poured another whiskey, my hands steady, and planned my next steps. The shapers were gone. Claire was broken, but I needed to rebuild, on my terms, without her shadow. Tuesday, the fallout spread like cracks in a foundation. Sarah Vell's follow-up article named 2 buyers, their reputations crumbling as the art world recoiled. Ethan vanished, his studio shuttered. Marta issued a cryptic apology online, then went silent. Leo and the others scattered, their collective dissolved. Claire's name was a whisper in galleries, her curator's career dead. I monitored it all from my office, X-posts and news alerts painting a picture of chaos I'd orchestrated. My email to Sarah had been anonymous, but its impact was undeniable. The Shapers' loft was condemned after my ventilation sabotage triggered a mold inspection. Their clay and tokens seized as evidence by investigators tipped off by my files. Claire texted again, pleading for a meeting. I ignored her, my focus on moving forward. I hired a lawyer, drafting divorce papers with ruthless efficiency. Our assets would split evenly, but the house, our Victorian, my sanctuary, would stay mine. I'd sell it later, erase her presence. Jasper followed me room to room, his loyalty a quiet comfort. Friends called, asking about Claire's scandal. But I deflected, my pain private. They didn't need to know I'd been the architect, not a victim. My revenge had been cruel, yes, but justified. She traded our life for a cult's delusion, and I'd made her pay in kind. I visited the loft one last time, its doors boarded, a condemned sign stark against the brick. Inside, I imagined the clay figures dissolved, the tokens crushed, the Shaper's vision drowned in my sabotage. I felt no guilt, only closure. Back home, I sorted Claire's things, her journals, her scarves, her sketches, boxing them for storage. I kept one token, its symbol faded, as a reminder of what I'd overcome. My engineering mind turned to rebuilding. A new project, a new city, a life free of her betrayal. Portland felt tainted now, its bridges mocking my failure to hold ours together. I'd leave, start fresh, but not yet. I needed to ensure Claire's fall was complete. That night, I checked my camera feed one last time. The loft was empty, its secrets exposed. I deleted the footage, erasing the last trace of my infiltration. The USB drive stayed locked away, a silent threat if Claire ever tried to return. I slept deeply, dreaming not of collapse but of new foundations, stronger, unyielding. My revenge had been a masterpiece of precision, dismantling her world as she'd dismantled mine. Now I'd build again, alone but whole, while she wandered the ruins of her choices. Jasper curled beside me, and I knew we'd be fine. The storm was over. The blueprint was mine to draw. Weeks later, I stood on the edge of a decision. The divorce papers were filed, Claire's signature shaky but final. She'd moved to Seattle, rumors said, working a low-level gallery job, her name still toxic in art circles. I didn't care to confirm. She was a ghost now, her betrayal a scar I'd carry but not display. The house was on the market, its Victorian charm drawing buyers unaware of its fractured history. Jasper and I would relocate soon, maybe Denver, where a bridge project awaited, its challenges a welcome distraction. My life was mine again, rebuilt on terms I controlled. I reflected on the revenge, its cruelty a weight I'd measured carefully. Exposing the Shapers hadn't just ruined Claire. It had shattered a network of exploitation, their buyers scrambling to hide. Sarah Vell's articles won awards, her sources me never traced. I'd leaked sparingly, keeping the USB drive's contents private. A final act of restraint. Not out of mercy, but because I didn't need to destroy Claire further. She'd done that herself, choosing the Shaper's illusion over our reality. My sabotage, my precision, had been enough. Her world collapsed, her identity stripped, just as she'd let them strip hers. I walked Jasper along the Willamette River, the city's bridges gleaming in the dusk. Each one was a lesson in balance, strength, resilience, qualities I'd rediscovered in myself. I'd been a husband, then a betrayed man, then a destroyer, and now simply Daniel, an engineer with a future to shape. The token I'd kept sat on my desk, not a trophy but a reminder. Trust could break, but so could those who broke it. I'd never let another Claire reshape me. My new blueprint was clear: work, purpose, solitude until I chose otherwise. One evening, a package arrived, no return address. Inside was a clay fragment, Claire's initials scratched into it, and a note: "I'm sorry. I was wrong." I stared at it, feeling nothing. She'd written it to ease her guilt, not mine. I crushed the fragment, its dust scattering, and tossed the note. Jasper nudged my hand, and I scratched his ears, grounding myself. The past was rubble. I'd build on it, not in it. My phone pinged, a Denver firm offering a lead role on a suspension bridge. I accepted, the challenge sparking something alive in me. As I packed, I looked at the empty house, its walls free of her sketches, her scent. The safe was empty, the USB drive destroyed. I didn't need it anymore. Claire's betrayal had been a fault line, but I'd reinforced myself, stronger than before. With Jasper beside me, I stepped into the future, my steps firm, my heart steady. The shapers were gone, Claire was gone, and I was whole. The bridge ahead was mine to design, and I'd make it unbreakable.